or statement, WAR is World Outdoor Racquetball. And then I'm going to add a few words. Myself and Marty's going to say a few words. But Mr. Hirsch is a... Guys, please, give me a minute. Y'all, please listen up. I'm going to ask everyone to please give me 5 minutes here. Scott Hirsch is a legendary outdoor racquetball contributor and the founder-director of the very first WOR Florida event, which was One Wall Nationals. That event led to the ever-popular Beach Bash right here that we're all enjoying. Scott led the way. Scott is a significant contributor to the Beach Bash event and for countless outdoor racquetball tournaments and events spanning several decades in Florida. Scott is the person responsible for having many of the legendary top indoor pro players, including Cliff Swain, Suzy Monchick, Ruben Gonzalez, Jason Menino, Marty Hogan, coming to play in the very first WAR Nationals here in Hollywood Beach. One of his greatest contributions was bringing New York one-wall legends Robert Socher and Freddie Ramirez to Florida, thus bringing the one-wall, free-wall, and indoor stars together for the very first time. I don't know about y'all, but I think that is huge. This wouldn't happen. Woo! You know, all of us go out and play free-wall, we would never know the one-wallers. All of us go out, some guys go out and play four-wall. They wouldn't know the free-wall. What Scott did in the original Beach Bash, wasn't called the Beach Bash, but the original tournament here in 2004, led the way for all three communities to gather once a year and do this. That's huge. I want to hear it for that alone. Woo! It's coming soon. But you know what? This is too wordy and it doesn't sound like me. So I'm going to talk from the heart. Scott does more for outdoor racquetball than this is as a contributor. He does more for outdoor racquetball than anyone else has ever done for World Outdoor Racquetball. He's done more than I ever do, but what's great and so special about Scott is over all the years he has insisted on not getting credit, or staying in the background. Whether it's helping make events affordable, whether it's helping make the prize money attractive enough so that we get the best players in the world to come down here, or just adding leadership to what we're doing behind the scenes. Scott's a good friend of mine. We've been playing out here together since the early 70s on these very courts. His dad, Big Sam here, was one of the legends of organizing and running and playing here in Hollywood Beach way back from the 60s. I started playing with little Scotty back in the day, and Big Sam from the early 70s. I can tell you that this event wouldn't happen year after year without Scott Hirsch's contribution. He's added to the paddleball community, he's added to the racquetball community. He never asked to be recognized. We insisted that he be recognized. I want to hear it for Scott Hirsch right now, please. A year ago, we inducted this legend right here, Marty Hogan, arguably the best racquetball player, indoor, outdoor, that ever played. Arguably, because there's somebody else here who might argue. But
Robert and...
there's a few. But this man was in the Hall of Fame last year. He's also a great close friend of Scott's. We asked him to say a few words on behalf of Scott. Marty.
Thank you. Everybody. Last year for me was a huge, tremendous honor. But really today is something that is even more important to me. Because if you remember last year, I talked about how my goal of being in the Hall of Fame is to identify people who are tremendous contributors that make outdoor racquetball what it is today. Now, my history with Scott, I'm going to let you in on just a couple of quick stories. In 1976, a lot of you weren't even born, I came to Florida and played in the sport rooms. Scott's father, who's sitting over there, brings a 10-year-old kid to the tournament. After the tournament, Scott and his friend Butch, who some of you may remember and stuff, come up and go, have me sign a ball, sign some autographs, and take some pictures at 10. A short time later, 5-6 years later, I end up playing a guy in Baltimore who is probably the greatest indoor player and combination outdoor player ever, Cliff Swain, in a real tough match. I luckily beat him that one time early on. After that match, Cliff actually came to me and was asking me about pointers and how to play and compete. So obviously, these two guys, they sort of met me early. A couple years later, we're in Bangor, Maine, in a pro event, and I just got done playing, and I walk into a restaurant that the age for drinking is 21. Now, I'm 19. No, I'm not. I'm over 21. I'm about 22, 23. And I know, I'm walking to the bar. I want to get an iced tea because I don't drink. I never have drank. But the gal wouldn't serve me because she didn't think I was old enough to be in the bar. So I said, all I want is an iced tea. I mean, I don't want to drink. She said, I'm sorry, I can't serve you and stuff. And I look over, and I swear to the moon and the stars, and they're here to validate it. They're sitting at the table is Cliff Swain and Scott Hirsch. I turn to the waitress, I say, ma'am, okay, those two guys are not old enough, and they aren't old enough, right? She turns to me and goes, oh no sir, we checked their IDs, they're okay. Two fake IDs, right? And I said, okay. I said, wait a minute, ma'am. I said, wait a minute. They know me. They know I'm old enough to be here. She said, fine. She goes, gentlemen, will you validate a story? I swear, they both look at each other. They look at her. They say, I've never seen him in my life. I said a few not complimentary things to them, and I left the room. But anyways, getting back to Scott, and getting back to the definition of a Hall of Famer. In any sport, to be in the Hall of Fame is tough. It is very tough. As a player, you have to be exceptional. And I don't need to tell you, we've been blessed in outdoor. We got some of the greatest. We're witnessing a generation of players that are the best ever, in my opinion. And you're gonna see four, if they aren't. And there's a couple that are not in the Hall of Fame. Richie Miller, who is, in my opinion, has been knocking on the door a couple of years, and the door's gonna open. I may have put you on hold a little bit in that 40s this week, but that's okay. And his great playing partner, Nelson. But there's no denying Robert and Freddie, who are not only Hall of Famers, but they are what I consider royalty of Hall of Famers. Getting back to Scott, just so you know, when I brought up the fact of having him and soliciting other players and other members of the Hall of Fame, in which you have to be voted in by a 75% margin or more, I began to write down all that Scott did, and it was really amazing to me that I had forgotten how much Scott had not only contributed, but his ideas and his concepts. I came to Scott, or we hooked back up in 2001. And at that time, we were putting together a kind of a classics or a tour for the veterans. And Scott came to me with a couple ideas about doing a Legends tour. And 5 years later, and over 50 pro events that went from all over the country into Puerto Rico, the Legends tour brought back all of the great players. But Scott had bigger and broader ideas. Scott said, what about the other sports? What about all the other racket sports? What about bringing the New York run wall? What about paddle ball? So even today, when the big event in Las Vegas, which is the three-wall ball event, that has paddleball, one-wall racquetball, and paddleball. These were all initial concepts of Scott Hirsch that in 2004, when we met with Wally out here and they didn't want any racquetball being played on these courts because these were the hollow grounds of paddle tennis, he allowed us to play in that event. And believe it or not, in 2004, that was the birth of the Beach Bash. Woo! Now I can embarrass Scott, but I'm not going to embarrass Scott. But Scott has contributed more money to the development and the continuing the development of racquetball indoor and then in outdoor more than anybody in my career. And believe me, I've seen him come and I've seen him go. But the true test of time for somebody that loves the sport and loves all of you and what you all represent are a very rare group of people like Scott Hirsch who make things happen. And I could go on, and I know I'm embarrassing him. And a matter of fact, he's probably the first and the last person that when I told him of my plan of looking to put him in the Hall of Fame, he actually got mad at me because he's never been the one that's wanted the attention. But when I solicited, and I believe this is the first time. It may not be the first time as far as Robert goes, but when I solicited all the membership for his acceptance, it was a first time for me, a unanimous selection amongst all the Hall of Famers and everybody that man be put in our Hall of Fame. So I'm extremely happy. I'm extremely. It's a great moment for me that Scott's father, who brought him to these courts when he was 2 years old. For the first time, 2 years old he was here, is here today to see his baby boy and to see our guy get inducted in the Outdoor Hall of Fame. So Scott, come here.
This tournament here was a good idea after all.
Hell yes!
A lot of people weren't so in favor in 2004, but it turned out to be a very special thing. And what amazed me is, as the guys that are local here know, that immediately preceded construction here, where it was impossible to do a tournament for a couple of years. And I thought maybe all we did to start this and bring guys like Robert and Freddie and many of the other people here into the fold. I see Bingo who played in the first one, and I saw Corey Friesman who played in the first one, and Richie Miller. No, Richie wasn't in the first one. He waited a few years to join in. And several other people that were here. Marty certainly, and Cliff. Vic was in the very first one. And I thought, wow, we lost momentum. It was such a great event, but no one's going to remember. And sure enough, 3 years later, Vic picked it right back up, and it was like time had never been taken off, because everybody loved the event so much that it withstood that test of time. And now, 2017, 13 years later, this tournament is bigger, better than ever. Than ever.
Great job.
I thank you guys so much. I think I'm getting a lot more of the credit than I deserve. Wally Schmidt deserved a lot. Marty helped me convince him, and once he did, he was all in. And Vic has taken the torch up and just turned this to an event beyond even what I could have imagined. And I owe my good friend Cliff Swain for getting me back into racquetball in the 90s after I had stopped for a little bit. He got me back into the sport with an interesting invitation. He said, how'd you like to come to Vegas for a couple days? Sounded good. And, but most of all, my father, who's back there, I never would have been to these courts. I never would have played paddleball. I certainly never would have played racquetball. I never would have thought of having a tournament here. I wouldn't have the same appreciation for the paddleball, the handball, the traditional one-wall New York games that he grew up playing. And more than anything I ever did in this sport, probably my proudest moment would be watching my dad win the tournament here. I can still tell you the scores when he beat Dettman in Las Vegas show. And many, many years ago, he's equally as, more so in fact, reticent to take any credit or anything, but he did something else that's very amazing and much more important than holding a tournament or anything that we did here this weekend. All pales because my father and another great guy named Harold McCahan integrated these courts when that was not a popular thing, but he did it against the advice of almost every one of his friends because it was the right thing. And that was the example I had set for me. And thank you, Dad. And without him, we wouldn't have this tournament for a number of reasons. And thank you so much. You know, I thank you to Marty for nominating me, and to Brett Elkins, who runs the Hall of Fame and works without getting paid tirelessly on it, Hank Marcus, and to Robert and Freddie, who saw fit to apparently vote for me. Doesn't say much for their taste, but thank you very much. And I will tell you, I don't know how these things work, I never got to vote, but my immediate inclination is to vote for Richie Miller and Cliff Swain. I don't know how these things work. Two of the greatest players ever right here in this sport at the same time. So I'm very humbled in comparison, and it gives us average players some hope. And I'm so proud of what Florida WOR has become, by far the largest state organization. And thank you all, because if I deserve any of this, it's because of everybody here who followed through it and made that into something that it's become. Thank you very much.